what advice have you got for anybody that's embarking on a data modernisation journey? Where would you start, or where have you started? Graham, do you want to?
I think I would say don't listen to what everyone else has bought. I think find what your challenges and problems are, and then research what are the potential solutions, tool sets, etc. that you can use. And some of those solutions aren't, as we talked about earlier, aren't tools. They're people, they're practices. It's putting in place, and it is about that end to end. So don't just see it as, and it's one of the reasons I think, I saw someone recently advertise for I think it was a CDO to lead the data transformation reporting to the CIO, and I just thought, no offense, I just think that's the wrong place for it. If this is a data transformation, there's a danger it will just look at the technology. They may not, but there's a danger they have a very technology focused, and it needs to be taken out of that area and say, actually, as much of this is about business transformation and how they consume data and insight, not just the technology and the people to make it happen. I think my last thing would be, and I think we touched upon it earlier, which is make sure you've got that exec buy-in. I've experienced personally when the exec, the CEO stands up and says our strategy is based on data, and he has a one-pager that has data in the middle and all decisions, marketing, product based on data. Then, as a data team, you arrived. When you're 6 levels down the organization and you report to, the caretaker, the data function has not arrived. In fact, you've departed. And I think just, getting that exec buy-in, having that person on the board that is going to be your supporter, not someone who says it, but actually does it, lives and breathes and stands up for you, and protects you, gets you the money you need, etc. Or it's you, as in get a CDO and get them to do it for you.
Right, thank you, Stuart. Quickly from you.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of absolutely agree with what Graham said there. I mean, I would say take a very deep breath. That would be the thing I would say to people about embarking on that journey. It won't be straightforward. It will be long. You need to be prepared to learn a lot, because you are not going to know it all when you first set out on it. Change management is always underestimated, and is arguably the most important. It doesn't happen overnight. So someone says, well, I'm going to modernize my data, or I'm going to become data driven. Doesn't happen overnight. And we kind of said before, legacy organizations often try and compete with startups who very often don't have the heritage or process spaghetti, or whatever you want to call it, of established businesses. Yeah, exactly. And so people want quick answers and quick value, and then they're surprised when actually the answer is not that simple. It's not always clear to businesses what being data driven means. So what modernization really means. It's also pretty unrealistic, I think, to expect senior business leaders. I mean, there are very few that kind of get it, and to understand or have a clear view of what they need. And Graham's mentioned CDO roles. I saw one the other day that was must be able to do CXO speak, but also needs to be fluent in Python. I'm like, well, it can't be both of those, right? It's one or the other. So the number of times I've heard the phrases, can you fix the data, or we want to be data driven, but then when you pick into it, there's very little common understanding of what that really means, or where to start, or which data needs fixing. So you need to be able to articulate the agenda in a language that the business understands and really can relate to. And whilst quick wins are always important, they always need to be driving towards a North Star. So, data isn't a reflection of the organisation. It really is what makes the organisation tick. And so don't treat it as a nice to have. Don't treat it as a sidebar. Set out a shared vision of what, in really simple terms, if you can't remember what your 4 or 5 key objectives are in your data strategy off the top of your head, then and you're not kind of living those all the time, then you don't really have a strategy that can stand up, because people are going to forget about it and it's going to go and collect dust somewhere on a shelf. So I would say, go into it with very open eyes and a very open mind,
and be really clear what you're trying to do. Joel, what would you start with?
Wow, I don't think there's much I could add to that. I think that's between Graham and Stuart. pretty much covered it, but it isn't really about technologies. You know, it's people and process. It's cultural. Start at the top. Be really clear about what you're trying to do with the data. What strategic objectives is it driving? Can you get in there and quantify that stuff? That's really important. We've struggled actually with some of that, and you know, it's not to say that it's not going well, but you know, really just tying it in at that, really keying it in at that high level. Definitely not about systems. I mean, you can bring in a shiny new bucket, but if you just fill it with the same old swamp water you had before, you've just got a shiny new bucket of swamp water. That's not what anyone sets out for. So yeah, it starts with the data and the, well, it doesn't start with the data, it starts with the people, but then data systems and technology and stuff is down the line.
And I often look at this and think that actually people should start with a conscious view of what the data architecture is that they want to achieve. Go back to your point about purpose, Stuart, and Graham and Joel, really. Just, you know, being clear about what you're trying to get out of it, and then consciously thinking about your data architecture to support that. David, you got any closing comment?
Well, once again, it's very difficult to follow Graham and Stuart and Joel when they've been waxing lyrical. But I would say, you know, in support of getting the right stakeholder is make sure that you aim low, hit the target, understand that use case and that it's relevant for an outcome, build out your business case, make sure that you've got a good hypothesis, don't spend too long on that, and iterate through and learn as much as you can. That way you can build out to something. Yeah, too many people will try and do too much or tell no one, in which case they won't get the buy-in. So